All right, Lloyd. In a recent NBC investigation, they found that Oracle and IBM and big companies like that were getting small business contracts. The SBA responded saying that they were anomalies. How do you respond to that?
Well, that's interesting. This first came out in 2002, and the geo investigation in 2002 was based upon FY 2000 data. So that was 12 years ago, and at that time the SBA said that it was honest mistakes, computer glitches, and now they're saying anomalies. You would think after 12 years they'd kind of get that straightened out, right? So let's talk about anomalies. So an anomaly would be like, getting hit by lightning, or getting in a car wreck, or it's a random occurrence, right? An anomaly, it's a random occurrence, So based upon the laws of probability and statistics, if you flip a quarter 100 times, it's going to be heads about 50 times and tails about 50 times. But it's interesting when you look at federal procurement data, when you look at these contracts that are awarded to large corporations and reported as small business contracts, that's not an anomaly. In fact, by the way, it's not what I say. In Report 516, the SBA Inspector General said that it's false certifications and improper certifications. That's fraud. Section 16D of the Small Business Act says that's punishable by up to 10 years in prison and a $500,000 fine. A report by the SBA Office of Advocacy found that it was what's called vendor deception. So there's never been an investigation. This has gone on now for over 10 years. There's been, 10, 20 investigations, and no investigation has ever found it's an anomaly. If it were an anomaly, on the form or in the government database, it says, are you small or large, right? Like heads or tails, black or white, up or down. A true anomaly would be half the time contracts to a large business would be accidentally reported as a small business award, and half the time an award to a small business would be reported as a large business award. They would tend to cancel themselves out. Another funny thing about the anomalies the SBA claims is this field where it says, are you a small business or a large business? The penalty for getting that wrong is up to 10 years in prison. So I think there's 86 fields, something like that, on a contract you need to fill out. But there's only one field you can go to prison for 10 years. So you would think that field's going to be extremely accurate, wouldn't you? But that's not the case. We find that the field where it asks if you were small or large, the error rate on that field is thousands of times higher than any other field. And of course we don't see what I would call an equal distribution of anomalies. It would be, data entry errors. You don't see that. So clearly anomalies doesn't make sense. It's inconsistent with the investigations that found that it's the result of false certifications and improper certifications and vendor deception, in the federal investigations. I'm stunned that even one reporter has ever believed that. But up to this point in time, I think every reporter that's done that story has completely bought that explanation. I think in 2006, the SBA issued a press release called Myth versus Fact. Look it up. And they claimed that the version of federal small business contracts to large businesses was a myth, like unicorns and dinosaurs and dragons. It's just a myth. And think about that. The Small Business Administration Inspector General, by the way, has said that the number one challenge at the SBA, I think for 7 consecutive years, is the diversion of federal small business contracts to corporate giants. Report 515 says this, and I quote, one of the largest challenges facing the Small Business Administration and the entire federal government today is that large businesses are receiving federal small business procurement awards and agencies are receiving credit for these awards. So right about the same time the SBA Inspector General released 515 that says one of the largest challenges facing the agency in the entire country, the SBA press office, headed by Mike Stamler, issues a press release that says it's a myth. I think those guys should go to jail for felony contracting fraud or collusion to commit contracting fraud. They certainly should be working for the federal government. So the notion that this is happening accidentally is ludicrous and unsupportable by the facts. And but again, if someone's going to make an error, it's going to be, they're going to report half the time an award to a large business as a small business award, half the time an award to a small business reported as large, and they were around, but we don't see that. I think I said earlier that Dave Cooper of the GAO told me that in their investigation in 2002, they found 86% of all federal small business contracts go to large businesses. If you look at the most recent data from the Federal Procurement Data System, this is the government releases, 72 of the top 100 recipients of small business contracts are large businesses, including, Fortune 500 firms like Lockheed, Boeing, and Northrop, and, Fenn Mechanica. The NBC story found, I think, IBM, Hewlett Packard, and Oracle receiving small business contracts. So anybody that believes that for the last 12 years, the majority of all federal small business contracts went to large corporations accidentally, give me a call, because I'm selling toll booths up here on the Golden Gate Bridge for a very reasonable amount. If you're that stupid, but it's ludicrous. And if it were anomalies, by the way, why do I have to go to federal court every day to see who's getting the contracts? If this were just anomalies, nothing going on here, Chapman's just a conspiracy nut, don't believe anything Chapman says, why do I have to go to federal court to get the data? Why don't they just, here's the information. I think it was about 3 years ago we were suing the SBA for the names of firms that got small business contracts. They told a federal judge that they had no information on the recipients of federal small business contracts. So the Small Business Administration that's responsible for every aspect of federal policy around small business told a federal judge, hey, we have no idea who gets these contracts. What was her name? Marilyn Patel? Yeah, Judge Marilyn Patel. She said this, and I quote, "It's curious the Small Business Administration claims not to have the very information they would need to carry out their mission." That's a nice way of the judge saying they're lying. So why would the Small Business Administration lie to a federal judge if this is just, simple miscoding, computer glitches, and anomalies? Well, it's not. It's according to this investigations, fraud, blatant fraud. In fact, one other quick story, about 3 or 4 years ago, the Inspector General for the Department of Interior looked into their small business contracting and took a sampling of, I think, 2% of their contracts that were supposed to go to small businesses. They found dozens of Fortune 500 firms. If you go back and look at that investigation, the Inspector General for the Department of Interior said something like this, I can't quote it exactly, but even though contracting officials at the Department of Interior had recently received training on how to accurately report company status as a small or large business, they went around the system to report the awards to the Fortune 500 firms as small business awards. And in my book, those guys are guilty of violating Section 16D and should go to prison for 10 years. They certainly shouldn't be able to continue working for the government after committing or helping people commit contracting fraud. So, yeah, the excuse that it's anomalies, it's ludicrous and completely unsupportable by the facts and all logic. Anybody that believes that is a moron.